Go. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Yay,
our
live.
webinar.
Yes. Yes. And we were just talking about how we think it will be a really nice one. I'm not sure if anyone has joined us yet because we can't see. But when you do arrive, please remember to introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from. Tell us where you are. Tell us what you're doing if you want to. And we'll introduce ourselves too. So do you want to start, Anika?
Sure. So my name is Anika. I am originally from Bangladesh, and I used to live in Malaysia before I moved to Italy for about 6 years ago. And we
Nice.
are both teachers in Milan Meraviglio. What about you, Jadene?
Yes. So I have been living in Italy for only 6 months, but I am originally from London in England. Hmm. Um, so yeah, we discovered earlier that I have been in Italy for 1/10. So we say, was it 1/10 of the time you've been here, Anika? Is that
I
correct
don't think
maths?
so. I don't think so
No,
because it's like month
mm,
and year are different things. So if it was like 1 year for you
1/24.
and 6 years for me, yeah.
So then it's half. 1/6, 1/12, 1/12.
All
I
right.
think 1/12.
So half, yeah, 1/12, yes.
Okay, we got that. We got that. This is why we're English teachers and not anything else.
And not math teachers.
Okay. So today's activity is called Lead the Way. So
Mhm.
Anika, will you in a minute? Yeah, will you read this slide for us?
Sure. So the topic of today is lead the way. So I want to begin with explaining the word to lead. Lead is kind of the opposite of follow. So if a person leads, the person shows you the way to a goal, a specific goal. So that's where the word leader comes from. So in this focus activity, we're going to talk about compound adjectives, idioms, and discussion on what makes a good leader, which I thought is
Okay.
an interesting topic.
Yeah, I thought so as well. So
Yeah,
who is a leader? And then we have a quote here by Warren Bennis. I don't know who that is. Maybe you do. Do you
I
know
don't
Anika?
either actually. I would guess he's an entrepreneur of some kind because a lot of
We'll
the
find
quotes these days are from entrepreneurs, but who knows?
That's true. And an entrepreneur is a really good word. So I think an entrepreneur is someone who works for themselves. Would that be fair to say?
I'm sorry, what was that? Could you say that one more time?
An entrepreneur is someone who works for themselves.
Oh yes, someone who works for themselves, probably own their own business. So a good example would be
Okay.
Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs.
Okay, great. So anyway, in this quote, Warren Bennett says, leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality, which is quite nice. So
Hmm.
being able to change what you want into something that's real. I don't know if I agree with that,
Hmm.
but it's a nice, maybe not for leadership. I don't think that's what it takes to be a leader.
Hmm.
But to be an entrepreneur, I would say definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, it's probably a combination of a lot of things to be a leader, not just about the goals, but also maybe taking care of the people around you and stuff and other things.
Mm, sure. Okay,
Okay.
so then we have some tasks and some questions. The first task is to brainstorm a list of different types of leaders. And then the questions are, who is the most influential leader you know of? So influence is a good word. And I'm sure many people know more and more what an influence is because we have kind of the job of influencer, which has emerged. And to influence someone is just to get somebody to want to do what you do. Ooh, yeah. So this is nice to have an impact on people. Yes, but I feel like it's also kind of getting people to do something, but without manipulation and
Hmm.
without forcing them, but just by being an influence, by kind of releasing something that makes them want to almost follow you.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yes. And then the final questions is how would you describe a good leader and a bad leader?
mhm,
So for the first task, brainstorm a list.
mhm.
What different types of leaders can you think of, Anika? And we have some examples of prime minister, football coach.
I was thinking of a manager, or in the business world, it could be manager. Um,
I was
hmm.
thinking maybe also of religious leaders.
Oh yes, they have a lot of influence on people, um, political
Mm.
leaders as well. Um,
Or also maybe anyone or any kind of company or
mhm,
industry where one company is the most prominent or one business. Like
mhm,
maybe in terms of technology, you could
mhm.
say Apple is a leader of phones. I'm not really
In the
sure. I don't really,
technology industry.
yeah, I don't really pay attention to the different kind of industries to know. But yeah, so
Yeah,
possibly there could be a leader like that in the sense of more of a business or a company.
sure. Yeah, it could mean like a good role model that other people are influenced by. So just like you said, Apple is a good leader in the
It's
whole
true.
technology industry.
It's true. I like role models as well, actually, because you
Mm.
also remind me of maybe groups for children, like
Hmm.
scouts and cubs, and that they're called scout leaders.
Yeah.
And then also with that in mind, people like cheerleaders,
Oh
like
yeah.
who lead a crowd to cheer or support.
Oh
So leader
sure.
can have lots of different meanings. If you can think of any, let us know. I see someone lurking in the views. Um,
Someone lurking.
lurking, just having a look, but not wanting to interact, and that's fine. If you do want to comment, it always makes our webinars so much more fun for us.
Yes.
Um, okay. So then, who is the most influential leader that you know of, Anika?
I think I can think of so many, but
Oh,
right now
great.
I'm, yeah, but then right now what comes to mind is Malcolm X, just because I've seen a movie of based on his life recently. So he was a great
Sure.
leader because people were thinking in a specific way, in very discriminating terms, but he changed a lot of people's minds. He influenced them in the right way, and because of him, a lot of things have been easier for African Americans in his time.
Mm,
So he was a great influence on people, um, because he's had a lot of positive impact on people, and his achievement. So he became a leader for many, a good role model for many people, um, and he had a really strong personality. Mm, and after watching the movie, I was really impressed because he used to be a completely different character. Like he had a lot of different things in his personality that completely changed. He became more responsible, whereas before he was not caring much about life. But then
okay.
he not only changed himself, but a lot of people around.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I can think of lots of leaders as well, but I'm trying specifically to think of any leader who has been able to attract a following of people unlike themselves.
Hmm.
And this is something I'm struggling with because often I don't know if what makes a good leader, which I guess we'll discuss throughout the webinar.
Hmm.
I don't know if what makes a good leader is someone who is able to get people to follow them,
Hmm.
or if people follow this person because already they're in the position where they're just looking for someone to lead them. Does that make sense?
Well, that's a good call. I think it's a mixture of both.
Mm,
Maybe it's like getting people to do things without manipulating them, of course.
yeah.
It's a good leader, but at the same time, because the person is such a good role model and he has achieved things, or he has set such a good example that people are inclined to, or they feel like it would be a good idea to follow that person.
Yeah. But I feel often
Yeah.
people like to follow, they like to follow people who fight for causes that are
Mm.
affecting them at the moment. And you see it all
Mm-hmm.
the time in politics, for example. People want to vote for
Mm-hmm.
the kind of political parties that will directly affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think then moving on to the next question, how would you describe a good leader?
Mm.
Um, Maybe not in terms of that they will be doing good, but I think in
Mm-hmm.
terms of being, um, yeah, a leader, in terms of being able to lead people. A good
Being
leader is
influential,
someone,
maybe.
yeah, influential. I think it would be someone where maybe if these policies don't affect me, I
Mm-hmm.
still want to support this person just because there's something about them. Maybe it's to do with
Mm-hmm.
their charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the way they present themselves. I don't know.
Sure, I agree. I think personality definitely plays a huge role in it. So, a leader may not be necessarily a good person or leading people to something good, but his
Mm,
personality has such a huge impact. For example, if we think about Hitler, and if you have watched his speeches, he was really aggressive, and it made you want to like listen to him. It seemed like he was saying something really important, and it would be good for us to follow him, but in the end, like, it wasn't such a good idea.
mm, it's true. And I guess that maybe I think in terms of modern leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe this could also answer the first question with brainstorm different types of leaders. I think for
Mm-hmm.
modern leaders, definitely the media is incredibly instrumental in who is a good leader and who is a bad leader. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that lots of people say that it's not the media. The media reports whatever the people think anyway, but I think that the media is incredibly influential. Um, and possibly, I think if you own if you own private media, then maybe I would say you are a leader of the world because it's
Yeah.
how everyone gets their news. It's how everyone forms their opinions.
Mm.
So there we go.
I think it's a sad thing because a lot of people influence others in the wrong way by using the media. Like, they manipulate people using
Yeah,
the media. So sometimes, if a lot of people read the wrong stuff and
yeah.
get influenced in a negative way, I guess there's
Um,
both good and bad in it.
it's true. So I feel like we're speaking quite objectively about what makes good leaders and blah blah blah. But in your kind of perfect world, Anika,
Mm.
what would you like? Who would your dream leader be? What kind of qualities or characteristics would they have?
Mm. I think someone who is really strong charactered, for example, has a strong character, not easily, who doesn't easily give up,
Mm,
um, and someone who is a positive person. So I think problems
mm,
come up every like a lot of the times when you try to do something, try to achieve something, but a leader wouldn't give up so easily. So give up is a very common phrase of verbs. In case you guys don't know, just to um,
sure,
stop trying. Yeah. So I think that's a really good idea. Positivity and determination are
lovely.
some of them. Yeah.
Okay,
Nice
so what do you think would
personality.
make a really bad leader in your dream world? Who is the ideal villain?
I think a bad leader would be someone without good moral conscience. I guess, yeah. Maybe the person is really influential, but maybe he's leading people to doing something really bad. So if a leader is probably he's really good for the economy of a country, but he is making the country more and more polluted. He's not doing anything about the environment or maybe the health of people. So I think he should have a good picture of everything.
Okay, so someone with a balance as well then.
Probably a balance, yeah. Do you
Cool.
agree with me, Jaden? Or is there something else?
Um, no, no, I agree with you. I think as well, it's nice to have a leader who is really putting the people first. I think it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's very responsible. But if you're a leader, it's like being a parent, really. And of course, I'm not a parent, so I can't judge parents. But I feel like if you decide to have a child, you should probably then this child didn't ask to be born. You should, do things for them. So if you're leading a
Yeah.
country, if you're leading a group of people, you should have them in the front of your mind, not
I
just
like
your
that
own
comparison. Yeah.
personal motive. And if you don't want to do this, then it's okay. Just don't be the leader. Someone else should do
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think often people can get a bit power crazy. So,
Mm.
um, so now we have a task. And this is looking at compound adjectives. So a compound adjective is when we take two different words and we put them together with a hyphen, and it creates an adjective that we can use to describe a person or a situation. So if I read the compound adjectives on the left, maybe Anika can then read the opposite words that are opposite to them, so the antonyms, and then we can discuss the meanings if necessary. And thank you. So Anika has just shown the hyphen. Or also we can call this a dash as well. You may hear it as
Mm.
either.
Yeah.
So we have forward thinking,
Hmm.
highly respected, strong willed, open minded, level headed, thick skinned, and down to earth.
Yeah. And on the right side, the opposites are disregarded, idealistic, regressive, sensitive, weak, narrow minded, and foolish.
And these are really some really beautiful adjectives anyway that you can use to describe anybody. Um, and also they're not limited to people. You can use a lot of these adjectives to describe concepts or yeah, of
Hmm.
some objects, not so many, but maybe like a plan. I think more concepts. You can use them for concepts. Um, but yeah, very
Hmm.
nice. So, Anika, will you help me match these up and we can also
Sure.
discuss the meaning of them?
Okay.
So the first one we have is forward thinking. So what does this mean?
So, forward thinking means when you are thinking in advance or
Hmm.
modern day type of thinking, not really old fashioned kind of thinking.
Old-fashioned is great as well,
Yeah.
because if we say someone is old-fashioned, it can be a compliment. It can mean that someone is a very classic kind of person.
Hmm.
If we say someone is old-fashioned in terms of their views or opinions, then this is very negative.
Hmm.
It can be insulting, and it basically means that this person has views that are very narrow,
Hmm.
and that are often oppressive towards other people. Because as we know throughout our history, obviously still right now in the world, but generally in our history,
Hmm.
in the past, we've had so much discrimination against groups of people, sexism, racism,
Hmm.
fascism, etc.
Yeah.
So if someone has these old-fashioned views, it's not a compliment at all.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So,
with that in mind, what do you think then is the opposite of forward thinking?
so I think the opposite is regressive, which would mean backward kind of thinking or old
Yeah,
fashioned in a very negative way. Yeah.
exactly. To regress is literally to go backwards, but not like in direction. It's like
Hmm.
backwards in life. Maybe you've been working for 10 years in a job, and you've got a new job, but you're a
Hmm.
few steps down from where you
Hmm.
were before. You feel like you've regressed, so you've gone backwards.
Exactly.
Um, so next we have highly respected.
Hmm.
And I think this is quite obvious. We have respected, so where
Hmm.
people listen to and keep your opinions in quite a high
Hmm.
regard.
Yeah.
So highly respected just means to be very respected.
Hmm.
Um, so The
Yeah.
opposite of that, Anika, what do you
So
think?
I think the opposite would be someone who is not respected or kind of ignored. Um, so I would go for disregarded.
Exactly.
So
So to
whoever's
disregard,
watching, if you
oh
know
yeah,
the answers, you can just type it up and send
yes,
it to us. I'm not sure
please
if you're
do.
able to respond because I think you need a Google account or YouTube account in order to
Yeah, you
reply.
need to be logged in, but it's very quick to do.
Hmm.
So we will still be here when you come back. But yeah, so to disregard something is literally, as Anika said, to ignore it.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then we have strong-willed. So what does strong-willed mean?
So a person who's strong-willed is determined to do something,
Lovely.
sort of stubborn, which is in a good way.
Yeah,
um,
like they will see a plan through,
mhm.
or so they will finish a job that they start. So the
Yes.
opposite of someone who is determined.
So the opposite would be, I would go with weak.
Exactly. And we can
Mm-hmm.
also say someone is weak-willed. You can say either. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just means you're not very determined. If you a
Yeah.
will has many meanings.
Yeah.
um, but if you have a will for something, it means you have a want to do something. So, oh, excellent, Sylvia. Perfect. Strong-willed and weak. So, if you are strong-willed, you have a strong want, and you're going to succeed. You're going to
Hmm.
do it. If you're weak-willed, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Great, Sylvia. So she has the answer for the next one. Open-minded
Okay.
and narrow-minded. So
Perfect. So,
open-minded is obviously someone who has a broad perspective to things and someone who doesn't support discrimination or backward way of thinking. And narrow-minded is quite the opposite.
mm, I like that. I like that you said broad perspective. It was really
Yeah.
nice. Whereas narrow-minded is you only kind of have your one view and you're
Hmm.
not open to any other views.
Yeah.
Excellent. So then we have level-headed. So
So
to be
level.
level,
Go ahead, Jean.
sorry. Um, so if something is level, again, level has many meanings, but one meaning of level is balanced. So if something is level, it's equal, it's well balanced. If someone is level-headed, it means that the thoughts they have, the opinions, their plans, they're really well balanced. They've thought them through. They're kind of rounded. So
Hmm.
the opposite of someone who thinks something through, who is well
Hmm.
balanced. What do you think, Anika
So I think
or
the
Sylvia?
opposite would be, yeah, would be foolish. Someone who does something, I don't know, silly, not very well thought out plans, just
Yeah,
doing
just
things out of
acts
instinct.
without
Yeah.
exactly perfect. And then so exactly, Sylvia, we have thick-skinned and sensitive. So thick-skinned comes from the idea that someone can say something horrible to you or do
Hmm.
something horrible to you, but your skin all around you is so thick that it doesn't enter and hurt you either physically
Hmm.
or emotionally. If someone is thick-skinned, we say is someone who doesn't cry a lot, who doesn't get insulted. They're very difficult to insult. Whereas the
Hmm.
opposite is someone who's sensitive, so someone who's very emotional to different
Hmm.
issues. And also, if someone says something, maybe we say takes it personally, so feels like a general comment is personally directed at them.
Hmm.
Okay, so then
And I would
finally,
also like to mention that
oh, sure.
sensitive can also be taken as a false friend because in Italian it has a different meaning. So, as Jadine
Mm,
said, keep in mind that sensitive refers to your level of being emotional, like when
yeah,
you're easily hurt by something.
exactly. And then perfect, down to earth and idealistic.
Good, Sylvia?
So if someone is down to earth, it means they. We also have a phrase: someone is grounded, and it just means someone is realistic. Someone it's like being level-headed. They can understand different issues. They really listen and pay attention to what's around them. Whereas someone who is idealistic is always thinking maybe about crazy plans or dreams, but they are not very practical. They're not really thinking about the current issues they have to face or how their big plans will affect different people.
Hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Anika?
I think you've said it all.
Okay, perfect. And Sylvia, if you have any questions, or if anyone watching, anyone else has any questions, then let us know and we'll really try to answer them. Okay. So Anika, do you want to read this slide?
Oh, yes. So we have some questions here. Lead a discussion. Number one, is there such a thing as a nature-born leader, or can leadership still be acquired or learned? Number two, think of a leader who is or was not highly respected but is strong-willed and thick-skinned. Can positive leadership qualities overcome a lack of respect? Number three, do you think strong leaders exhibit more high-spirited and energetic qualities, or are more serious and level-headed? Number four, give an example of leader who is or was known for his or her thought-provoking speeches and forward-thinking ideas.
Wow. Okay, so again, these questions are for everyone to answer. So please, if you have any opinions or views, you can answer any of the questions. Just put the number so we know which question you're answering.
Yeah.
And while we wait, Anika and I will just talk through these.
Mm.
So for question number one, Anika, do you think that being a leader is natural, it's a nature thing, or do you think
Mhm.
it's all about the environment?
Well, I'm actually not very sure about this, to be honest, because I think some people are natural born leaders. But
Mm.
then there are those who learn to be a leader because their circumstances
Mm,
force them to be a leader in some ways. So I think it can be both depending on the person.
that's
What do
true.
you
I
think?
no, I completely agree. I am a big believer in the nurture argument, which
Hmm.
is that your environment is very responsible for who you are and that people can change. I do think some
Yes.
people are naturally more authoritative, um,
Hmm.
or yeah, more natural or instinctive leaders. But I think depending on their environment, I
Hmm.
think someone who is, who could have been a good leader but are constantly being put down
Hmm.
or, silenced probably wouldn't grow up to be a leader
Hmm.
because of their environment. And I think the same for the opposite. Maybe someone who's more quiet, but maybe has a
Hmm.
lot of siblings, a lot of younger siblings, and often had to take responsibility. I think would have learned a lot of these leadership
Hmm.
skills.
I was thinking the same thing. A lot of people say that firstborn children are natural born leaders. I don't know how true that is, but a lot of people say that.
I think it depends on how much responsibility your parents give you.
Yeah.
If you have to look after all the children, then maybe you're more of a leader.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so what about question two then? Can you think of any leaders who are not
Hmm.
highly respected?
But it's strong-willed and thick-skinned. Oh, that's a hard one. Um, can positive leadership qualities overcome a lack of respect?
Hmm.
Um, hmm. Well, I can think of leaders that were not respected at the beginning, but then they won over a lot of people.
Oh, tell me.
So, yeah, so Malcolm X is what comes to mind just because I watched the movie recently.
Yep.
So I'm sure there are other leaders that really found it really hard to convince people to do the right thing, but then later on they won people over. Mm,
Hmm. I don't know.
okay, so
I can
not highly
think.
respected.
I can think of kind of current
Mm-hmm.
issues or current affairs. There are a lot of I think there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
leaders who aren't very well respected, but I don't think that these people necessarily also have good leadership qualities. And I think that people just kind of give up. But then it
Mm-hmm.
depends on what country you're in, because I know the last
Mm-hmm.
prime minister of the UK, people just didn't like her. Really,
Oh,
they just didn't
yeah.
like or respect her.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but I also don't think that she had any good leadership qualities. I just
Mm-hmm.
think people in
Mm-hmm.
the UK, we just dealt with the fact. So to deal with
Mm-hmm.
is just to accept and move on with the
Mm-hmm.
fact that she was the prime minister. Whereas I know in Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
quite a few years ago, after Lula, there was another female president whose name I can't remember, um, and people weren't very happy with her. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
she had quite good leadership qualities, but then she got impeached shortly
Oh,
after.
really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people
Oh,
just they really didn't like her.
mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes no. I think so. Can positive leadership qualities overcome a lack of respect? For
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I think I would try, but I think for some people, I think people who are more strong-willed and who make up their mind instantly and decide to not respect somebody will never accept that they have good positive leadership qualities.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So then, for question three,
Yeah, so we have, do you think strong leaders exhibit more high-spirited and energetic qualities, more serious and level-headed? I happen to think that both different types of personality um, can make a good leader. They're just different leadership styles, but both can be effective in different ways. Maybe they have to manage things a little differently.
maybe.
If it's a leader of a country, though, probably they have to give a lot of speeches in front of people. So maybe a little bit of energy is necessary to have like a strong voice in some way.
Hmm. But again,
But
I
I think
don't
even a
know.
serious and level-headed person can be a good leader.
I feel like if someone is too high-spirited or too energetic, people don't take them seriously because they
Oh
just
yeah, you have a
assume they're
point. Yeah.
not doing their job properly. So it's
Hmm.
difficult. But I think it's good to have an energetic, positive leader. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of people just say, no, I don't, you can't take them seriously.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. On second thought, yeah.
Okay, and then question four. Um, give an example of a leader who is or was known for their thought-provoking speeches and forward-thinking ideas.
Hmm. Well, so I can think of a person that I know of. He won the Nobel Prize um, for creating a bank for the poor people. And he's not a leader in any ways, but he's kind of an entrepreneur, and
Mhm.
because of his ideas, he has influenced a lot of people. Do you know Muhammad Yunus by any chance?
Oh, I think maybe I've heard of him.
Yeah. So he has opened up this bank for poor people, which has helped millions of people around the world. And now everybody's imitating his ideas in different countries, implementing
Hmm.
his ideas. Yeah. So I think his ideas were very thought provoking, and some of his speeches are very influential.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
This is also not an example of a leader. But you know the author Colette?
I don't actually. What does he write about?
Well, it was a woman. She was French and English, and she wrote some stories that were originally published under her husband's name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they were all about kind of a young girl at school, and then she grows up. Um, but the way she wrote used to be quite erotic, I think, and
Oh.
also she kind of expressed many views and opinions that at the
Mm-hmm.
time women weren't really thought of having. So it's not that she was forward thinking, but I think writing these things down
Mm-hmm.
and getting them published, she
Mm-hmm.
kind of gave women a bit more of a voice in France many, many years ago. And I think definitely her writing was thought provoking because, yeah, people just didn't assume that women thought in these ways, which I find quite funny.
Do you know
So in
when
a way,
her
she led a movement.
nice? Which period was she a writer in?
I want to say 18 something,
Okay.
but I
Okay,
don't
that's
know
really,
the
yeah,
second part.
that's very
Cool.
brave of her to publish something in the 1800s.
Yes, but like I said, it was originally under her husband's name.
Okay.
So it was originally published under a man's name.
Mm,
And then afterwards, she was just
yeah.
like, they're mine.
That's what they used to do in the past. A lot
Yeah,
of writers just to get their books sold,
true.
they had to use a
Yeah.
man's
And then when people liked them, they'd be like, haha,
name.
I was a woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have some idioms. And before we match them up to the definitions, we're going to try and guess whether these idioms are positive, are negative,
Hmm.
or don't really have a positive or negative connotation. So we have ahead of one's time. For example, she was ahead of her time. To cut someone some slack, to lay down the law, to put one's foot down, the blind leading the blind, and to light a fire under somebody.
Hmm.
So, and again, Sylvia or anyone else watching, you're welcome to answer these as well. Um, so do you think
Hmm.
ahead of someone, if you describe someone as being ahead of their time, do you think this sounds positive, negative, or neither?
I think it is a positive idiom um, because it means when you're thinking. So this we can relate this to forward thinking. So you're
Yeah,
not um, regressive, but you're thinking ahead of your time.
yeah, I like that. Thinking in the future. What about cutting someone some slack?
So what it means is when you cut someone some slack, you are being a little more um, gentle and lenient with them. You're not being too strict. I mean, so if someone is so for example, if as a teacher I give too much homework to students, like that's like too much. Like, okay, I'm just gonna they might say, cut me some slack, it's too much work.
Yeah, it was excellent, Sylvie. You got the first one right. Do you have
Well
any
done.
ideas
What do
now
you think
after
of the second
hearing,
one?
yeah, after hearing what Anika would say about the second? Do you think cutting someone some slack is positive, negative, or neutral? And we can move on as well. So,
Yeah.
Anika, what do you mean? What would you think if I said we can't go outside because the police are really laying down the law? What does this mean?
Okay. So laying down the law is when you set the rules. You say you must do this. You're laying down the law. So yeah, the
Exactly.
government has laid down the law for
Yeah,
us not
literally,
to
because they really have
worry
laid
about.
down
Yeah.
law. But you
Yes.
can say it in your own house, oh, my wife or my husband's really laying down the law, so I can't do this, I can't eat this.
Yeah. True. True.
Um, so what about putting your foot down?
So when you put your foot down, I think it means when you embarrass somebody in some way. Um,
Oh, I don't think so. How about
no, I think.
if I give you the example that Anika, next
Mm,
time you need to put the screen up for
mm.
the focus activity, you need to direct it. Okay?
Okay,
Then
so
you
when you're
say,
firm in
perfect. Yeah.
something, yes, you put
Yeah.
your
You
foot
say,
down.
no, I don't want to. And I say, I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah,
I'm very,
you firmly made the decision. Yeah, that's right.
So then the blind leading the blind.
So, the blind leading the blind. So, this would mean when the person who is leading is just as bad as the people who are following him or her. They're not
Exactly.
considering things blindly. So, blind is a word which means that a person cannot see. Okay, so your eyes are closed. I'm blind. And so if someone is leading blindly, so he's not looking forward, he's not probably not taking notice of the dangers ahead. So this
Excellent.
could only lead to something bad.
So the last one is actually a phrase I've never heard. So to light a
Hmm.
fire under someone. So do you think this is a good or bad thing?
So I think if you light a fire under someone, you're motivating the person or to work
Okay.
hard or to influence the person mm, to yeah.
Okay. So let's see then if you're correct. So to cut someone some slack. Sorry,
Mhm.
did you think that was positive, negative, or neutral?
So I thought it was neutral, I guess,
Hmm.
or and positive. I would say positive.
Oh no, no, they said neutral
That's
as
a
well.
hard
Okay, so what about to lay
one.
down the law?
I mean, okay, it's positive for the person
Who
who
is
you're,
being cut the
yeah, who
slack?
would be, yeah, exactly. And lay down the law. I think it's neutral. You can't say positive or negative for that.
You don't think it's negative?
Well, okay,
Oh,
if
it's
in a negative,
neutral.
it's
Okay.
yeah. I was thinking like, okay, if it's a really strict rule, then
Hmm.
maybe it's a negative for people following the rules. But it's
Okay,
just a
true.
rule. I mean, we need some rules, right?
Okay,
In
so then
life.
what about putting the foot down?
Oh, that's a hard one because okay, the person who's putting their foot down, it's a positive thing because you are gonna make people do what you want them to do.
No, it's neutral again.
Isn't it okay?
Okay, but the next one, the blind leading the blind.
Okay, that's a definite negative for me.
Yep, negative. Fantastic. And
Yes.
you said to light a fire under someone is positive.
Yes.
Okay, so
Hmm.
here we have the actual descriptions. So Anika has told us, but we'll read through them again and again. Sylvia or anyone watching, you're welcome to match them up just before we do. So
Mhm.
type in the comments. So we have to make someone do something in advance of current ideas, an unskilled person leading the equally unskilled people, to make something clear in a stern way. So stern is just another way to say firm. Um, allow someone to do something that's not usually allowed and to take a firm stand. So to be ahead of
Hmm.
one's time, we would say
So this would be, I would go for in advance of current ideas. So
exactly. I think
Sylvia
if it,
or someone else watching, please feel free to
yeah, yeah.
answer them if you know
So
it.
if you have any questions, tell us. But this is really, I think it's very similar to being forward thinking.
Hmm.
Um, so to cut someone some slack,
So for this, I would go for make something. No, I'm sorry. Mm, mm, mm. Allow someone to do something not usually allowed.
exactly. So I liked your example of homework. If you're giving so much homework and they say, please cut me some slack, usually you would give them homework, but you say, okay, there's one time you have a lot of homework, I'll stop. So
Yeah.
then to lay down the law and to put one's foot down, they are very similar.
Hmm.
So which do we think for which?
So for lay down the law, I would say make someone do something.
Ah, I
Or
don't know.
I don't know. Hold on. I'm still leading the. Oh no. Make something clear in a stern way. probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to lay
And put
down the
one's foot
law
down would be
is
take firm stand.
exactly. So they're very similar. But to lay down the law is to tell someone the rules
Mm-hmm.
clearly, okay, and you can't break these. This is
Yeah.
how it is with the quarantine. You cannot go outside. These are the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And to put your foot down is just to emphasize that you're not going to change your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So to lay down the law and to put your foot down can work very closely together because they're similar. But to put your foot down is more about your personal views. I'm not moving.
Mm-hmm.
And to lay down the law is more about the rules, giving someone rules.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, the blind leading the blind.
So that would be unskilled, leading the equally unskilled.
Exactly. And that can be unskilled for whatever it is you are currently
Yeah.
taking charge of. Um, like we said, Anika and I both teach English, but I am not skilled in maths. So if I
Mm-hmm.
tried to teach Anika maths, this would be an example of
Yeah,
the blind leading the blind.
I'm just as
Um,
bad.
so finally,
Mm-hmm.
to light a fire under someone, you were right. So to make someone do something, so maybe to motivate someone into doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can imagine it as if there's a fire underneath your feet, you're going to run or move or something. So,
Yeah.
okay. So then maybe for the last part of the lesson, we can just do a summary because we only have a few minutes left. And
Yeah.
if you have any questions, please let us know. So, at the beginning. Um, we had a conversation about different types of leaders or different people or groups we can describe as being a leader, for example, within an industry. We also spoke about different types of leaders that we know
Mm-hmm.
and which leaders we know that have been influential. And we spoke about objectively what we think makes a good or bad leader, as well as personally. Then we looked at compound adjectives, which can be used to describe not only people, but some of them can be about concepts, but not all.
Yeah.
um, and we matched them to their opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, finally, we had, well, finally, the next, we had another discussion about leadership skills, what we think make good leaders, if we think leaders are born to lead
Mm-hmm.
or if their environment can shape them. And finally, we looked at different idioms we can use to describe leaders, and we spoke about whether or not we think they have positive or negative connotations. So if you describe someone with this idiom, are we saying a good thing about them or a bad thing? So Anika, do you have anything that you want to say?
I think that's it. Basically, maybe we could review some specific vocabulary and idioms that we talked about. So maybe we can take it away and then just give some definitions or some hints while if someone's watching can try to remember them. So we
Sure.
can do it very quickly. So the first expression that I can think of is when you firmly tell people what the rules are, and you want to tell them, "I'm not going to change my mind. This is what it has to be." So what do you think it is? So if you're watching, you can either reply it or what do you think? I'm referring to Jadine.
Yeah, so I think you can be referring to laying down the law, so telling someone the rules, and
Mm-hmm.
also taking a stand. So by firmly saying, like, these are the rules, putting your foot down, I'm not going to change my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Put your foot down and lay down. The rules are quite similar, I guess.
Hmm.
And what do you think of if you think of someone who is who thinks in advance, in thinking in the future,
So
not old fashioned?
we can use the compound adjective that they are forward thinking, or we can say that they're ahead of their time. So their
Yes.
thoughts are really progressive, not regressive.
Yes. Exactly. And then I can think of Another compound adjective, which means someone who is calm and controlled, someone who, yeah, very
Someone
calm.
who is level-headed.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I can think of an idiom, which means to allow someone to do something that you usually don't allow them.
Okay, to cut someone some slack. Probably my favorite.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay, great.
So I guess that's it for today.
Okay, well, thank
So if you're
you.
watching it later, hope this has been useful.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.